All right. Hi, guys. It's great to see you. If you can open up the handout that I emailed you guys, that's in the calendar, or if you pull the slides up, it's linked here as well. And you can follow along with what we're going to be doing today. This is the agenda for today. First of all, I want to say that I kind of, sort of, maybe miss you guys a lot already. Just thinking about not seeing you guys for a couple weeks is already making me a little bit uncomfortable. And yeah, it's not ideal, and definitely already feeling like I miss you guys, even though we just had an extra week. So reach out to me any way that you want, remind, email, but yeah, I would appreciate that. First of all, our AP test is going to be a 45-minute FRQ, so we're going to practice that regularly. You have the calendar linked here as well as emailed to you. We have each of the days lined up on here for you to reference. And then on Friday, I'm going to have 4 different time slots for about 20 minutes to however long you guys want to jump into a Zoom chat, and we can talk about what we did that week. And I might throw out some other days on the Wednesday, Thursdays for the first 15 minutes of each class period, and you can jump into other ones that aren't your class period if you like as well. But I'll send a little bit more information about that based off if you guys let me know that you need some clarification on things. And so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to start our personality unit. We're going to talk about who Freud is, the id, ego, superego, defense mechanisms, and then a little bit of the psychosexual stages, which is some of Freud's bizarre ideas, but we're not going to get into that much because I'm assuming it probably will not pop up on the AP test because we don't really accept that as realistic, accurate, valid psychology, but it did get us starting to think about the unconscious mind. First of all, our life challenge, though, is I want you guys during difficult times, it makes us take a step back and we think about things that we previously took for granted. And so what I'd love for you to do is discuss with your family, what are things you took for granted prior to this entire situation? And then how are you going to keep yourself grounded when this is all done and be thankful for those things? So I'd love for you guys to do that. And that'll be at the end of your Google form. So I talked about what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Freud. And he had a lot of conversations about his mom, your mom, and a lot of other pretty inappropriate things that you can kind of search a little bit more on your own. I highly recommend you look up some Freudian slip videos. They're pretty funny. All right, first thing, definition of personality. It's an individual's unique way a person thinks, acts, feels throughout their life. And when we talk about this, we're going to get to traits a little bit later, but when we talk about our traits, these are things that are durable, and this is our disposition. These are things that happen when we're a young kid, and that continues throughout our life. And that might be honest, dependable, moody, excitable. Those things usually don't change very much. All right, so let's first of all talk about Freud and his idea of psychoanalysis. So Freud came up with the idea of psychoanalysis, and this focused on development, similar to our previous unit with Erikson and Piaget and Kohlberg. But he talked about the psychosexual stages. And so, yes, they were very sexual and they were weird. All right. And so he said that we were driven by these unconscious motives. And so the unconscious mind is this area underneath the iceberg, which is most of what drives us to do things. And he said this was mostly with the conflicts within ourselves. He focused a lot of it on aggression and sex-based things, which the neo-Freudians, people after Freud, and now we don't really look at. But we definitely know that there's some unconscious drives that cause us to do things that we do. So right now I want you to pause the video, and on your handout, I want you to write down some examples of each of these stages of the unconscious level, pre-conscious level, and the conscious level. So this is conscious level is what you're aware of right now. Pre-conscious is things that you know, but you aren't necessarily thinking about at the forefront of your mind. And then unconscious are things that happen in the past that might cause you to do things that you don't necessarily know. So think about like implicit biases and some of the examples here, like irrational wishes or selfish needs. So that was all Freud. So Freud had this idea of the id, ego, and superego. And so if you think back to some of the cartoons and movies, you have the devil on the shoulder, the angel on the shoulder, and then the person in the middle trying to balance that out. So first of all, Freud said we developed the id. And the id is, think of a little kid who just wants the selfish pleasures. Me, very egocentric. And then on the other shoulder, there's the superego. The superego is the idea that it develops last. And so this is talking about, all right, society expects these things out of me, so I need to do those things in order to fit in, to be a part of society, to be well-liked. And so you kind of then have to balance that out with your ego. And so your id causes you to be selfish. your super ego causes you to try to do things that help other people and make you look good. And then your ego tries to balance that out, because sometimes you have to do things for yourself, and sometimes you have to do things that balance that out and conform to what society expects. And so the id, the devil, the superego, the angel. And so here's some other examples. The id is also called the pleasure principle, superego, your morals, and then the ego is reality. And so you're trying to balance those things out. So I'd pause this slide and read over these and add these descriptions to your handout. And then also use the picture that's on your handout to describe how that picture is representing each of the id, the ego, and the superego. All right. So how did Freud figure all this out? So he would use this idea of free association. So here's an example. There's 3 pictures shown here. In that bottom right picture, it's blank. What I want you to do is I want you to pause your screen and I want you to draw anything you want in that box. And so obviously you have this on a computer right now. So pause it and draw on a sheet of paper. And then pause. All right. Now that you've unpaused, now you're going to use this chart on here. And so if you look at this, it describes what Freud would say different objects denote different types of things. For example, squares are masculinity, round is femininity, sharpness and clarity indicate high intelligence. And so go through this list and then think about, is this valid? Is this reliable? What does this really say about who you are? Do you think this is an accurate way to do this? And so a little bit of review. Freud talked about the idea of manifest versus latent content. So think back to your dreams. The manifest is the thing that you drew right here. It's also the story in your dream. The latent content is the hidden message. And so the hidden message would be these ideas. So again, the manifest content is the message, and the latent content is what you are, what that really means. So now we're going to talk about Freud's psychosexual stages. I don't think this is going to be on the AP test, so I'm going to go through this really quickly. Essentially, he said in the oral stage, kids like sucking, biting, chewing things, that's the stage they go through. And he would say if you got fixated on a stage, that you would not be able to progress and you'd be stuck on that stage throughout the rest of your life. And so someone that might kiss a lot of people, they might have had an issue in their oral stage. Or in an anal stage, which kids are learning to use their bathroom for the first time by themselves, if they can't do this, then they might have like the idea of like being anal, where you have to have everything organized in a particular way. You might have been stuck at that stage. The next is the phallic stage. You're starting to figure out that you have different types of genitals than other people. And then he even said you develop sexual feelings at about 3 to 6. There's a lot more we can go into on this that we're not going to. And then latency is 6 to puberty. You kind of forget about those sexual feelings that you have. And then the genital puberty stage, that's where you start actually being interested in sex. All right, so the next thing is each of these defense mechanisms. So I'm going to quickly go through these. Let me check my timing on here really fast. Still doing all right on time. So we have, essentially, this is where your ego steps in and they try to say, all right, you have these uncomfortable feelings in this situation. And so therefore, I'm going to try to balance that out by kind of knocking out that sense of reality, trying to like make reality okay. So with regression, that's like when you regress acting like a little kid. And so this might be that something happens to someone and then they start sucking on their thumb or they throw a temper tantrum. They've regressed to what they acted like when they were a little kid. For reaction formation, write down you form the opposite reaction. Sorry, this is backwards. And so when you form the opposite reaction, that would be like, for example, if I'm mad at my dad, but then I'm overly nice to him, or you're really annoyed with a friend, but you act like you can't wait to see them again. Projection, this one's the toughest and it comes up all the time. Is when you project your own feelings onto someone else. And so these all kind of sound very similar. And so projection is, if I am mad at you, I might accuse you of being mad at me. This happens a lot in terms of when like someone's cheating on the other person in a relationship. They will accuse the other person of cheating, even though they're the one that's doing it. And that makes them, again, feel better. This is trying to it's a defense mechanism to make you not feel uncomfortable. Rationalization is you think, it's not that big of a deal. You try to rationalize it. Like, for example, someone that smokes a Juul, they said, I only do it when I'm out with my friends, or I only do it after dinner. You're rationalizing that behavior to make you feel better. Displacement is when you take your feelings and you put it onto something else. And so, for example, your mom gets yelled at by her boss. She comes home and yells at you for no reason. And so we've all been there. Or if I got into an argument with one of my coworkers and then I came into class and I was not nice to you, which would never happen, obviously, right? And then the last thing is denial. This means that you essentially act like it never happened. You get dumped and you think, no, there's no way. Like I'm still in the relationship. They still love me. So I know that was a lot. Pause this and play the quizzes game here. I promise these sound super easy when I explain them, but then to actually understand them, it's a little bit more difficult. And then create an example of each one on your handout. This is probably the most important thing because I think this is something that definitely could come up on the AP test, as it does a lot. All right, now that we've resumed the video, the next thing is the id, ego, superego. Again, you can pause on this slide and use each of these to get a little bit better idea of what each of these are and a little bit more of a description. And so just to recap, we talked about what is personality. We talked about Freud and psychoanalysis, the id, ego, superego, the psychosexual stages, which is not on your formative. I would just have a brief idea of it, but I don't think it's coming up on the AP test. And then lastly, defense mechanisms, which I think is the most important thing and the hardest to do. So the next thing I want you to do is complete the Google form that's linked right here, and it's also in your calendar. And then optional, there is a good video on here that I think you guys would definitely enjoy. And then there's the creepiest video of all time. I even hate showing this. I cringe. But it's all about Freud's idea of the id, ego, superego. It's super bizarre, but it gives you a lot of other information that I didn't talk about. It talks about the idea of the phallic stage and how essentially you're attracted to the opposite parent at a young age before you're even aware of it. And so it's super creepy. It gives you a little bit more information, but I usually show it in class, but obviously we don't have that opportunity right now. So again, complete the Google form. Email me with any questions, and we'll be doing these types of videos each day. Just give me an idea of if these are helpful or not. And then if you want to look at other types of resources like your textbook, I highly recommend that as well. Cut off. Did this in exactly 12 minutes, so I feel pretty good about that. And so hopefully this was helpful. Please let me know if there's anything I need to do differently. And again, missing you guys a lot.